Saxalatina presents relative pronouns and relative clauses. Let's start off by looking at an English sentence that uses a relative pronoun and relative clause. Here we have, the slave girl who was walking behind Salvius was carrying the jug. Main part of our sentence is, the slave girl was carrying the jug. In the middle of our sentence, we have this clause, who was walking behind Salvius. This gives us a little bit more information about the slave girl. It relates back to the slave girl, and that is why it's called a relative clause. The way it relates back is through this relative pronoun who. So who in this sentence is going to be our relative pronoun. It is how the clause relates back to the slave girl. And as you know, pronouns stand in for nouns. So does our relative pronoun. It's referring back to the slave girl. So that's what it's standing in for. And the slave girl is called the antecedent of the relative pronoun. And if you remember, ante in Latin means before. You can think of the antebellum South, the South before the Civil War, or in poker, when you ante up, that's the bet you put down before the game begins. So you can see why antecedent would be a good name for the slave girl, because it comes pretty much always directly before the relative pronoun. Now let's look at the same sentence in Latin. Ancilla quae post salvium ambulabat, urnam portabat. Again, we have the main part of our sentence, Ancilla urnam portabat, and we have our relative clause, quae post salvium ambulabat. Here in the Latin, our relative pronoun is going to be quae, and the antecedent, the word that it's referring back to, is ancilla. Now let's look a little bit more at how ancilla and quae are related to each other. Just as in English, if you have a woman that's being referred to in a pronoun, you would want to use the pronoun she, or if it's a man being referred to in a pronoun, you'd use the word he. Or if you now have more than one, you have a group, you would use the word they. We have to pay attention to these things in Latin as well. Gender and number. In Latin, you know as well that we have case, so those are the three things that we have to pay attention to. So we have gender, we have number, and we have case. That's going to be important, and we'll need to keep in mind when we look at the relationship between ancilla and quae, our antecedent and our relative pronoun. Okay, let's look at ancilla. Ancilla, the gender, that's going to be slave girl, so we have feminine here. And again, slave girl, that's going to be singular. We only have one, so that's going to be singular. Now, case is a little bit trickier. So what we're looking at here is the quae. It's going to be feminine and singular because it's pointing back to the slave girl. It's female, one, so we don't have plural, we don't have masculine or neuter involved here. But quae is acting as the subject of ambulabat, who was walking. If you remember, the case that is for subjects is the nominative case. So this has to be feminine, singular, ancilla is female and one, and then quae ambulabat, who was walking, that's going to be nominative because the who there is the subject of the walking. Therefore, the way you have to think about it is that the gender and the number of the relative pronoun, quae, is pointing back to the antecedent, ancilla in this case. However, the case, or the function that is going to be performing in the actual relative clause, is basically pointing forward to its role in the clause itself. Therefore, you always want to remember that the gender and number of the relative pronoun always points back to the antecedent. The case of the relative pronoun, however, points forward to its use in the clause that you're working with. Now let's look at how this actually looks in our chart for gender, number, and case. We're only going to work right now with the singular because the plural is actually easier, so that's why we want to start with the singular. And I definitely want you to pay attention as we're going through this here because I am going to give you an oral quiz in which you're going to need to repeat back this entire chart to me. But if you do it as a chant, then it's going to make things much easier for you to remember it. Okay, so nominative going across singular, masculine, feminine, neuter is qui, quai, quod. Okay, say that again, qui, quai, quod. Now going across the genitive, we have quius, quius, quius. Notice that it's the same all the way across, so that's very easy to remember. Okay, let's do the first two lines together. Qui, quai, quod, quius, quius, quius. If you need to stop and practice that for a little bit, that's fine. We're going to add one line at a time, and hopefully by the end of this, you will actually have started to get this memorized. The next line, dative line. Of course, dative, you remember, means to or for. So there's going to be to or for whom, to or for which or what. Dative line is going to be qui, 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 C-U-I. All the way across. Again, that's going to make it easier to remember. Start again at the top. Everybody together. Qui, quai, quod, quius, 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 qui, qui, qui. Okay, let's add on the accusative. We have, accusative is going to be quem, quam, quod. And again, let's start from the top. Qui, quai, quod. I'm not hearing everybody. Come on, let's hear everybody. Qui, quai, quod. Quius, quius, quius. Qui, qui, qui. Quem, quam, quod. As you remember, the accusative is used for the direct object. Okay, now we just have one final line to add, the ablative. And that is going to be quo, qua, quo. And this is it for the singular. Let me make that an O so you can tell definitely that it's an O. Okay, let's do this all together one more time. Like I said, if you will do this as a chant, do it out loud, it will be very easy for you. You'll have it down in no time. So let's start again. Qui, quai, quod. Quius, quius, quius. Qui, qui, qui. Quem, quam, quod. Quo, qua, quo. Very good. Practice that a few times. You'll have it down, and then you'll do 100% rate on the quiz over this. By this point, you should be starting to feel more comfortable at identifying relative pronouns and relative clauses, as well as starting to be able to translate them in Latin. What I want to do is a quick comprehension check now, to see if I need to help you further, if you got this pretty much down. There's two Latin sentences here. What I want you to do is, for each in the form that I'm providing, tell me what the relative pronoun is, what the antecedent for that pronoun is, and then also the gender, number, and case. I want you to do that for both of these. If you need to review parts of the video, that will help you out. That's fine. That's what I want you to do if you get stuck on these. The last thing I want you to do is to translate them as well as possible. This is just kind of seeing which words you're still having trouble with. I'm more interested in you identifying relative pronouns and antecedents and such right now. But this is also just a little bit of a quick check on vocabulary and grammar, see how well you're doing on translating in general. So just fill out that form, submit, and then I'll see you in class.